Progress. Okay. So on the machine in front of you, you got your keyboard. I think I showed you this, but if you hit Control Alt F2, it will give you a new prompt. I just have too much junk on my machine. Oh, there it is. Did bring it up. Okay. So that may have not recorded. But what we did is Control Alt F2, F3, F4. And what that does is brings up a standard terminal login prompt. Okay. Now, I'm logged in to my virtual machine by way of my network. Okay. Now I'm logged in this way so you can so I can make it bigger so you can see it. So for all intents and purposes, I'm on the virtual machine. Okay. So what I want you to do to start with is type in IPA and see what your IP addresses are in your virtual machine. Oh, wonder what that means. If we have issues, we have issues. No DP cable. Okay, let me climb up the desk here and see. Everything was on the list. Well, yeah, what is their stuff? Troubleshooting never ends. I don't know. Oh, go ahead. So where do you see that? Let's see if there's anything installed on that. Because even if it's, let's hope they use VMware 12. Oh, looks like they. Oh. What happened? gracious. Kind of like the computer club. I do know the security uses these computers. What? Scanning for signal. Well, I guess we'll have to put this in maintenance mode. This is- Screen is flat. Okay, that should behave. Maybe. Maybe not. It doesn't. Well, let's hope the VM machine, which machine did I install on? Was it 2 or 1? Yeah, one of those 2 would have it built too, so. If that one doesn't work. Okay, now what I want to show you to start with is try your SUDO, and then how about apt update. And if your machine comes back and says Tux is not part of SU, I'm going to get that. Nope, it worked. Okay, well, that's good. All right, and do VMware 12. And then what this does is it will update the lists. One of the things we'll do tonight is we're going to write a script that runs an automatic update on our machine. But you can do this manually, and basically it's apt update and then apt upgrade. These are all you really need. And you do need SUDO in front of these if you are Tux. Okay. What does it do? Update goes through and double checks all your repositories to make sure they're current and fresh. Upgrade will look at all the software that's on your machine, compare it to the repos, and then update the software. Okay. So it's a way to manually double check if everything's current. Okay. The Ubuntu is like Microsoft. It will sit there and run its own update in the background if you let it, which is fine. But I prefer to have a little more control over it. I run update a little more frequently because I want to make sure I catch all the security things. And you can automate it fairly well. Okay. So there's that. Now, when you boot your VM, how many are getting the graphical interface? Okay, half of you. Now, here's something to remember, because this is part of the final, is SUDO system CTL set dash default. There's 2 of these. We have 2 defaults. One is multi-user target, which is a server, and the other is graphical target, which is the GUI. So we're going to turn the GUI off. And we do that by doing multi-user target. This turns your box into a server. It turns off X windows and it turns off a lot of the noise that you don't normally need in a server. Okay. And then all you do is hit enter. And then ta-da! If you want to go back to the graphical, you just put in graphical target. So that's a piece of information that you're going to need for the final. That command there. And because you're going to be basically using a cookbook recipe, I'm going to say, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And we will have all this is built throughout the semester. Okay. And I will come up with a reasonably good lab between now and then, of course. Okay. All right. We'll do this in phases. All right. All right. Now what I want to do is when we do our IPA, I want to look at our MAC address. You got that. Okay. If you get tux is not in SUDO file, here's how we fix it. I'll go through the process. SU minus sign. This takes you directly to root. Okay. This is switch user. You're logging in as root, as if logging out, logging in again. Password for the root user. This is basically, we're going to root. And what we set that to? Yeah, that's right. VMware 12. Now you can see how my prompt has changed to the hash. When the hash is my prompt, I'm God, the giver of data, the root user, the administrator on the box. I can do anything. Okay. Include in deleting everything by accident. Okay. Now, how do we add tux to the super user group? We say user mod dash lower a upper G sudo tux. That's the command that will modify the user to lowercase a is add, uppercase G is group. Then we tell it what's group, and then we hit enter. Now, your tux user is part of that group. We have a bunch of groups in this machine. They are in cat Etsy group. I really wish they had made that plural because it makes more sense. Groups, but that's beside the point. But Etsy group shows you all the different things that are part of this. Look, there's a user called Pulse. Pulse? Well, there's a whole subsystem called Pulse Audio. Okay. So Tux is part of video and plug dev and so on and so down. And I keep going down and I look for SUDO somewhere. Oh, KVM. Need to fix that. SUDO, there we go. Tux. So he's now part of that. So I can actually type in exit. I may have to log out or log in again, but now Tux can SUDO. Okay. So what did I do to fix it? SU minus And then as root, I did user mod AG sudo tux. We did the set graphical target user. Now let's go back to our IPA and look up I want to look up my MAC address here. It's that one. And then I go to this website. It's called dnschecker.org. And it does all kinds of magic for us. And it may not show on your front page. But what you can do is, I believe it's under network tools, and you want MAC address lookup. So I'm going to wipe that out and put my new one in. Darn it. It's going to be ornery here. So MAC address. And click search. Notice it says record not found. Because what is my MAC address tied to?
Virtual machine.
Virtual. It's a virtual network card. So it's randomly generated. Because I am connected from my virtual machine via SSH to my virtual machine. So I'm on a virtual network inside of my virtual machine. Okay. That's why it's not there. Now, if I go to my host, so if you go to your Tux user on your machine in front of you and type in IPA and look at all the different MAC addresses you have, the one that you want is going to be something like ENP something or other, or ETH0. So highlight that MAC address and take a look at it. Because now this MAC address is tied to a very real network card in my box. Notice what it says. Who made the card? Dell. Makes sense, doesn't it? So you can actually look this stuff up. Now, notice where it says address prefix. Our MAC address is consistent of a couple of bytes here. It's, I'll use the Dell here. So we've got the 74 ... what? 86E2, 86E2. And then we have three more. These three are the vendor. Okay, that's the vendor. The last three are unique to the card. If we're all running Dell equipment, we better all have different second three MAC addresses, or the DHCP server won't know who to talk to because you have the same MAC address. It's like having, the way I like to describe this is the IP address is the license plate on your car. That changes occasionally. But the vehicle license ID, the VIN number, is basically printed on the car. You can't change it legally, okay? So that's your MAC address. Those cars, those VIN numbers have all kinds of information. The day of the week it was manufactured, the color of the paint, the size of the engine, how many doors it is, the body type. That vehicle ID number has a ton of information in it. That's why it's so gnarly long, okay? So what we are going to do is in our virtual machine, as part of our machine prep, we are going to change our host name to Dev12, the last three octets of our MAC address. Why are we going to do this? Because when we build out all the servers in the computer room, we're going to have machines, and we're not going to know what machines are where, but we'll know what the MAC address based on the name is. So we'll get an idea so we can create some mappings of where our machines are hanging out. Okay. So even though we are on a virtual machine, like right here, I can still use those addresses. And how do I change my host name? Well, I'm going to get to that next. Host names have to be named very specifically. All right. This is where I get to get up in my soapbox about spaces and file names. I'm currently in a folk dancing group. It's pretty simple dancing. It's just fun. And what we do in this folk dancing group is we listen to music and people remember the dances. We do these dances. But their computer's dying and they want me to go in there and help them fix it. So I'm backing up all the MP3 files that they have. There's spaces everywhere. There's duplicates, triplicates, quad, there's thousands of duplicates. The first thing I'm doing is running a script that goes through the entire drive and removes all the spaces from the MP3 files. Then I sort it and then I collapse it. And now I can get rid of all the duplicates and save it. Because they have 10,000, no, 65,000 line items for music, but they might have 900 actual MP3 files. All those are duplicated in some sort of a library somewhere. So I got, no wonder you don't want to upgrade this thing. You don't know where anything is either. So when it comes to host names, no spaces. And if I create my host name with an underscore and I use my, whatever it is, what did I get? 191176. 191176. Underscore will not work either. So if you're a Python coder, that will trip you up because I use underscores in Python all the time. I use snake case for most everything, just because it's easier to read. But a minus sign is legit. Remember that when you register your domain name. You can use a minus sign, okay? So we are going to change our host name to be this, okay? Now, as a exercise for the reader, how would you write a script that would do that? Here's one way to do it. I can say IPA and put in my ENP 1S0. See, whoops. If I could get it right, ENP 1S0 IP address. I think it needs to be a quote. ENP 1S0. Might need to be have quotes. Oh, I know, there's another way to do this. Type in host name minus I. There's 10 right answers. Host name minus I get 2. Do you guys get 2? You just get 1? Yeah, I've got a bunch of other crap installed on this, my virtual machine, because I want to show you how to install this bunch of other crap. So I only want the first one. So you can automate this by using this little technique I'm going to show you. You will use over and over and over again. It's print, excuse me, AWK, awk, single quote, print, squirrely bracket, $1, nope. I always forget this syntax, sorry. Print, $1, squirrely bracket, single quote. This awk line, you can also use cut, but awk is a full-on programming language that works really well on slightly structured text. If it's separated with spaces or tabs or vertical bars, awk is a great tool, okay? So what this does, I say host name, and it's giving me the IP address, okay? All right. Now, let's see if I can get this to work with, I want to do IP, a double quote, DNP 1S0 double quote. All right, IP address help. Mac. So I can say oh man, that might work. IPA show Mac. Mac sec. P0. I want just the one. Oh, I did. That's how it worked. I used IP show and then the name of it. Now I'm only getting the one I want. Okay. So where's my MAC address? It's in the second line, right? So I say head -2, tail -1. Vertical bar, awk, single quote, squarely, print. Let's go with amper2, squirrely, single. There's my MAC address. This is why getting around in the command line, learning how to do these sort of things. This is what Bash is about. You can automate all this stuff. Let me make it bigger and clear and hit up arrow.
Was amper2 like the second word in the line that you were trying to fix? When you said amper2 in the, because I got it to work, you said print2, is that the second?
Yep, exactly. Second field. Then the third field and so on. You got up to 9. Now remember, we only want what? The last 3, right? How are we going to do that? Well, let's do the same thing. Vertical bar, awk minus uppercase F as in field delimiter. And quote. And then I say single quote, squirrely, print. I can spell print right. Then I want, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Let's go with 3, 4, 5. $3 space $4 space $5. See what I get. Looks pretty good to me. Almost. Darn, missed it. I got 0, 0, 9, 11.
4, 5.
So I need, yeah, 4, 5, and 6 will work much better. There's my MAC address. Okay. So here's what's fun about this is that you can do this a couple of ways. How should I show it to you? Now, what would I be doing in the real world? In the real world, I would be setting this to some sort of environment variable called MAC name. Okay. And then I'd put a single quote around the whole thing and then another single quote. Darn it. I have to use double quotes. I think double quotes will work. If not, welcome to the world of quoting magic. There we go. Echo $Mac name. Okay. You remember how to make this available to everybody? How come it didn't execute? It just gave you the command line. What happened? I want my 6 digits in there. I don't want the command line. Look at that command line. If that was part of my host name, look at all those spaces. The machine would die, would never boot or ever connect to the network. Maybe I forgot something. This is how you make something executable. There's 2 conventions, and this is the one I like, is you use a $, open paren, you go to the end and use the close paren. So this is valid. So you can say $open close and put it into some environment variable. All right. That's valid. What you will find in scripts all over the place is the same thing, but it's the backtick / grave mark, which never translates when you copy, cut, and paste from the web. So when you copy something from the web and it's got the backticks in it, it ain't gonna work. I can almost guarantee it. If you use this nomenclature, it almost always works because parentheses are pretty common. This grave mark oftentimes shows up as a single quote, and that has a completely different behavior because if you look at your keyboard, the grave mark is over off to the left below the tilde. The single quote is down by the return key. If you type them in, there's a very subtle difference on what they look like. That's double quote, that's single quote. So when you copy this stuff across, it doesn't always work. I've had a lot of trouble with the grave mark over the years. Okay. Just trust me on that one. Okay. Now when I echo my MAC name, haha, there it is. So if let's see here, how can I do this? All kernel No, it's host name. Well, let's not worry about that right now. You can change your host name through some different utilities, but the one that's the easiest is just changing this file. This file, Etsy host name, is where your name goes. Okay. So we want to do our fancy, we're going to call it Deb 12 dash whatever. In my case, it's 1911 76 or something. Yeah, 76. Okay, close enough. So this is what I want my host name to be. Now, since we're only doing it once, you can type it in. So you would say SUDO DI / Etsy host name 1911-76. And I'm going to call it Deb 12 1911-76. So now my host name will not get re-acknowledged unless you drop and restart the network. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just reboot. Okay. But I want to show you this command line here because you can automate the rename of your machine in a script after it's loaded and booted. Okay, that will be part of your final. I want the host name to have this information. Show me your script that renames it. Okay, here's the information you need. Now that I have that, how about this? I'm going to say echo, and I'll just do Deb 12 minus dollar, what did I call it? Mac name. Is that my host name? Is that what I want to call it? Well, then I'll just redirect it to a file. And I can do sudo move J to Etsy host name and type in host name. Got to reboot. I'll do that. sudo reboot. Let's see if my script works. And all that's in your history. So keeping this stuff down. So think of it as we go through this semester, all these little things we're doing, we're basically going to put in some sort of order so we can hit a button and have our machine install and do all this stuff for us. Okay. So I need to go here and click on open. And what you'll find is when you get rid of the GUI, your virtual machine loads a lot faster. Okay. I don't know if you can see it in the back, but you can see how the host name has changed. Well, let me log in again. And I can use the same IP address. Ta-da, new host name. Last 3 octets of my MAC address. So if I do history, oops, and go up at, whoops, it's not there. Oh yeah, it is. I gotta go find it. Well, let's just echo that. Uh-oh, I didn't set it in there. Let's go back further. There it is. I want to do that. That's the magic line that gives me this. And look, it came back as the same MAC address. Yay. That means it didn't change. Which, once your virtual machine is created, the MAC address won't change unless you want it to. You can do that by going into right-click, open, and go into details of the virtual machine, which is over here. Okay. You can click on the NIC and change the IP, and you can actually change the MAC address in the XML if you want. So you can actually edit things. You have complete control over this stuff. Okay. So let's do view open console here. All right. So there we go. Now we got the idea of our host name. All right. And let's move into our logical volume manager. Okay. With our logical volume manager, we can actually see that if I do SUDO PVs, talk to me. Let's see here. There we go. It's wanting the password. There we go. There we go. So I have one drive. So I don't have any additional drives. Now, how many remember from last week, what do we need to do to add hard drives on our virtual machine? Reinstall from scratch? Add more drives? Yeah, we go into our view details and we simply say add hardware. Okay. And I want to add storage and just make it easy. Do 2 5 gigabytes and do it again, add hardware. 5 gigabytes. And then go back to view console and do SUDO PVs. Let's see if it shows them. I guess I should have put more memory, more CPUs in this one. Is yours slow too? Or is it just mine? Okay. Yeah, it doesn't show it. That's good. All right. Well, how do I know if the drives are there or not? Well, there's a couple ways to do this. We can do SUDO fdisk -L. How many remember fdisk? Didn't think so. This is from the days of MS-DOS, where you do fdisk and you'd say initialize your floppy drive. Yeah, no doubt. So, whoops, there's a lot of them. So you can see, here's VDA. That's the one that we've installed to put our OS on. And notice these two, VDB and VDC, all I did was add it, hardware, go back to console. Did I reboot? No. So this functions almost like hot spares. Almost. Not quite. Close. Okay. Which is cool. So if you've got your production instance on a virtual machine, it gives you a lot more flexibility on moving stuff around. Okay. But now we need to do something with those volumes to actually format them. Okay. Now, here's one way to do this. Now, I teach this way because most people don't use this sort of technique. So I do it to kind of expose you that this does exist. There are easier, faster ways to do this. So I'm going to say sudo fdisk -dev vdb. That's my second drive. And I hit enter and wait for it to prompt for the password. I should allocate more resources to my VM or turn off some services. I'll get there. This way it helps you catch up. Okay. Now it says, okay, there it is. DOS MBR, master boot record dislabel. That's what we want. So we say new primary 1 default 2048. That's the block size. And then the end of it of my 5 gig drive. Ta-da! And it says created a new partition 1 of type Linux. That will almost work. So we do fdisk drive, new primary, take the default, take the default, take the default. Here's where we type in the letter T and then L. So we need a different type of, I'll show you what we did. We need to change it to 8 echo, and it was 8.3. So type Linux. You can take an old DOS drive and put it in your Linux box and read it. You can take an old Windows drive and put it in your Linux box and read it. You can even do that with Mac, Sun OS, Ultrix, all the rest of them, FreeBSD. May not be able to write to it, but you can at least read it. Okay. So we want to change the type to 8 echo. So what do? We say 8 echo. Oof, backwards 3. Okay. Now, notice it said change type of partition to Linux VMM. So if I hit P for print, it tells me everything about my drive. Okay. Then we do W to write it. Now I do this again. Anybody interested in learning how to automate this? You can do this with a here document. You can actually automate this. Okay. Now I wait. But when we install our machines, I'll show you. There will have ways to automate it. Okay. So I do the same thing. N for new. Default P. Default 1. Default 2048. Default last sector. T. 8 echo. P to print just to prove it. Oops, it didn't change it. It's because I didn't type it right. 8 echo. There we go. Now do P. There we go. And then W to write it out. Okay. All right. Now I have written this sector to these drives saying, hey, I'm going to be part of a volume group now. And what we do is if we do our sudo PVs and wait, we'll see which drives are available for us. Okay. I don't think I'll put enough RAM into this one. Okay. So there's VDA. Notice it doesn't show anything yet. Here's our next step. We do sudo pv create. And then we say dev vdb partition 1. That was one of the defaults we put in there. /dev vdc1. And then we hit enter. And we wait. And then when we do PVs, it'll show us the drives. Successfully created. Yippee skippy. Right? So there we go. We're ready to be part of it. Now there's a couple commands. We can do the PVS command now. Whoops. Only as SU. And it will display them. And there's another one called PV display. PV display will give you the specific information about the hard drive, like how many blocks are there, how many extents are there. So if I do PV display, SUDO. So there they are. I got my 2 drives. Notice all this information it gives you. These are important. Okay. Now, here's an interesting problem. You've got your machine and you've got your drives, you've got your 2 or 3 drives, and you've created a logical volume. And for some reason, your machine won't boot. You have these 3 drives. What do? Actually, you don't have to do much. You just take them out of the dead machine and put it in a new machine, and you can actually import that volume group into the new machine, providing it's got LVM set up. So as long as those 3 drives stay together, you can actually move them from machine to machine. Ideally, you do an export first, which exports all the configs. You move it to another drive, and then you say import, and then it takes those drives and boom, they're up and running. Now, why is this important? Well, in the virtual arena that we're living in, we add virtual hard drives. The way virtual machines work in the real world is more along these lines, where you have this. Don't need this. And you can sort of do this in the KVM on these machines. If you have something called storage pools. And storage pools is just a collection of disks that is shared on the network. So your virtual machine, we could call it KVM1, can share a chunk of disk. I can turn off the KVM, move to another computer, run the KVM, and still use this set of disks. I can also export these drives and move it to another chunk of slow disk if this needs to be faster disk, because storage has 3 tiers. We have tier 1, or I guess you would call it 0. I guess it's called tier 1. Tier 1 is super fast, like in RAM. And then tier 2 is on HDDs. And then the old stuff, tier 3, is out on tape. It'll still work. It just takes a long time to get the tape and load it up. But that's great for archival. So when you have a system set up like Foster Farms, we had a system called Tivoli Storage Manager, and it was a dream to work with. Backing up was kind of a pain, but restore was awesome. Hey, I deleted a file off my disk. Can you get it back for me? And you can go to the Stibbley storage manager, go to that user's machine and restore that one file with a click of a button. So when people talk about backup, that's great. I'm glad you got it all back up. How does it restore? How fast can you get an individual file from an obscure location back to the user? That's why you pay $5 million for Trivoli's system. Okay, it was ridiculously expensive, but the ability to recover that kind of granularity with a click, click, boom, and they get it back, it's pretty darned awesome. Normally, you back up everything, and then you have to work through it all. And no, yes, no. No, you don't want to do that. The other way to do it is just have a hot backup of everything's rolling log files. Okay. So now we've created our PVs. Okay. Now our order is PVs, VGs, and then LVs. Physical volume, volume group, logical volumes. This is the order. AIX uses the same terminology. HPUX uses the same terminology. It's been around a long time. Okay. So what we want to do, since we have two 5 GB drives, here's how we're going to create it to start with. I got a 5 gigger and another 5 gigger. Here's my drive. Now, for the sake of practice, what we're going to do is create 2 volume groups. We're going to create one volume group that uses half the drive, and then let's just do one volume group. We'll just do one volume group, okay, to start with, so we can learn the process. So our volume group will have the equivalent of 10 gig in it. So once we have our 10 gig drive, then we create our logical volumes, and we'll create 3 of those that are within the volume group. And I'll use red for that. So the logical volumes are basically chunks of my volume group. Okay. And I'll show you how to extend and resize those things in a minute. Okay. So we're going to create a volume group. Now, here is a convention that I strongly encourage you to adhere to. When you create a volume group, it's just like PV create, it's VG create. VG create, I'm going to call it data VG. For the sake of your sanity, when you name a volume group, always put VG in the name, because you're going to have stuff splattered all over the enterprise, and you're going to have things in hundreds of places, and you're going, what am I looking at? Is this a drive? Is this a logical volume? Or is this a volume group? What am I looking at? So if you use a naming convention, you will solve a lot of headaches. Okay. And what we will do here is very simply say, I want to put all of drive 1 and 2 into this data VG. And we say dev DV1 and dev VDC1. So basically what this does is we can now hit enter. Oops, what I forget, SUDO. And wait, we'll probably ask for password because it timed out. Maybe not. We'll see. SUDO, if you do a bunch of them right after each other, you don't have to redo the password, but if you let it sit for a while, it will prompt you again for password. So now what we can do is we can do the same thing. Type VGS to see what's in there, VG display. Oops, SUDO. Gotta figure out why this is slow. And notice what I called it. Oh. Data VG. Now notice I changed my host name. Did it change the host name on the original volume group when I created it? That was my original host name. Can you rename it? Yeah. But you have to unmount it. Well, then how do you unmount your boot partition? I'm running the operating system. How do I unmount my knees while I'm running? You can't. Okay. So what we do now is now that we see its size, all right, and 99.9G, you can use SUDO VG display, and that gives you kind of like PV display, and it shows you what's in it. Now, everything I'm doing is all over the web. You can find this stuff everywhere, okay? And you can see what consists of it. Now, let's say I'm made this volume group available, and all of a sudden somebody starts using up too much disk. Well, all I have to do is add disk to it and extend the volume group live. So you don't have to worry about dying and crashing. Okay. And then there's another one, SUDO VG scan. This basically verifies that everything is healthy. Okay. And then you can do VG rename if you want. Okay. Maybe you want VG data. So you can rename. Okay. There we go. Found using type blah, blah, blah. Okay. Now we're ready to do the logical volume. With the logical volume, it's the same thing, LV create, but there's some parameters we add to this. Remember, we're going to create 3. We got 10 gigabytes. We are going to create 3 2 gigabyte logical volumes. Okay. And it looks like this. L, SUDO. LV create. -- name. Data 1 LV. Remember, logical volume. I'm using that naming convention. Okay. Then I give it the size. And I say 2 gig. And then I tell it what volume group to go to. That's it. I have now created the equivalent of a hard drive that I can mount to, which we'll do next. So I'll do that one. Hit up arrow, do data 2 LV, hit up arrow, data 3 LV, and I will have created 3 logical volumes within my 1 volume group. We're going to have time where you get to do all of this again. Fun, huh? And we'll set up the script, we'll set up the commands so you can kind of see by using the history. Okay. and do 3. There. Now I can do the same thing. LVSU deal. LVS for list my logical volume. And then LV display, LV scan, LV rename. And then here's the fun stuff. LV extend makes it bigger. LV reduce makes it smaller. So if I have one volume group that's not using its 2 gig, I can say reduce, allocate that disk to number 2. It needs more. So you can actually do all this stuff live while the people are using your machine. I keep stressing that because that is a big freaking deal. You can't do that in Windows, at least not comfortably. They have some stuff that allows you to do it. In their server package, there's a bunch of add-ins you need to do. And it's like, I saw what they had to do and I just shuddered. You're not going near that. Okay. All right. So there's the LVs and LV display, VG scan. Let's do LV scan just to show that it's all working. You can also do PV scan, I believe. I don't think you need to, but it's there. Most of the commands are the same across all of them. Then there's one very last little piece. Look at that. It's all active, ready to go. Here is one little piece part that we need. Is we have formatted our logical volumes. Our logical volumes are now available. And we are ready to create a mount point. What we'll do is let's call it MNT slash, what did I call it? For the sake of argument. Yeah, MNT, we'll just do it that way. We'll call it data 1, data 2, and data 3. Okay. So we are going to mount these logical volumes to this directory structure. Everything in Linux is a file. Everything in Linux is, when you do a mount, that's how you add a drive to your system. Okay. So what we need to do is say, okay, what kind of file system do we want on our logical volume? Do we want it to be NTFS? Do we want it to be FAT32? We could, but we're not. We are simply going to make it Linux, which is ETX4. And here's how it works. SUDO MKFS, as in make file system. EXT4, that's the most common. How many are there? Well, there's Btrfs, it's just BTRFS, which is a rollback that's used in Red Hat and SUSE. There's ETX3, there's ETX2, there's Riser, and there's about 30 others. So you can format your disk logical volume to work with FreeBSD or OpenBSD or Windows. So you can format these things any number of ways. We're going to format it this way. So what we do is we say, okay, I want to do that. Now, where is it? Here's the convention. Dev. What's the name of our volume group? Data VG. Volume group. Close. So close. That's the next answer. Data VG. And what's the name of the volume group? There you go. Data 1 LV. Now, what this is doing is saying, please put the ETX file system on this logical volume. Okay, that's all it's doing. You hit enter, let it do its thing. I think I'm running into disk problems because I have a feeling that I might be disk constrained. We'll see. So notice what it says. Ah, there we go. File system UUID. We'll need that in the future. Okay. Now I do it again. Hit up arrow, put in 2. And then up arrow and do 3. So what this does is when we take our physical volumes, make PVs out of them, take our volume group, make a VG out of it, we create our logical volumes. Now we've formatted our logical volumes to work with our Linux box, okay? So we can actually put files in there, okay? Now we're ready to do something else. Let's practice. So they're all formatted. So this is what we need to do first is sudo mkdir /mnt/ we'll call it data 1, mnt data 2, mnt data 3. What are we doing? We are simply creating an empty directory. That's it. Nothing in it. To mount our logical volume 2 so we can get to the data. So when you put in your USB drive, click, it automatically mounts it into media, username, so on and so forth. Okay. So I hit enter, let it do its thing. I definitely have to investigate why this is so slow. Okay. Now, if I do sudo ls -l/mnt, I should see 3 directories in there. Yeah, I got some disk IO issues. That's shouldn't take that long for an LS. There they are. And notice it says D on them. All right. Now we actually have to mount our drives so we can get to it. Okay. So if I do sudo change directory to mnt data 1, actually got plenty of room. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Let's just do this then. Let's just change directory to mnt and change directory to data 1. And notice there's nothing in there. Now, if I do ls -l, who owns this? Who owns this directory? Who owns data 1, data 2, and data 3? Root. Does that mean Tux can write in there? No. Okay. So I want to put a file into data 1 to show you something. Okay. So I'm simply going to say sudo vi where did it go? .txt. Insert. Poof. Okay, I have a file in there now. Okay. There it is. All right. Here's how we mount our formatted logical volumes so we can put stuff in it. We type in, let me get the right numbers here. It's sudo mount. Then you tell it what does exist, data VG, data 1 VG, to MNT data 1. Okay. What this is now doing is putting my 2 GB drive to that mount point. And I'll go ahead and do the other two, mount them the same way. So what did I type in wrong? Oh, it needs to be LV, not VG there. Using virtual machines like this is a great way to get up to speed on Linux and the guts, because we're adding and removing hardware and we're playing with it. And what happens if it all messes up? You just rebuild the VM. If it's on hardware, it takes a little longer to do this stuff. Okay. So now if I do DF, oh, look, I see MNT data. Oh, cool. Let's see what's in there. Let's do LS minus L. Oh, wait a minute. We'll try that again. Huh, it's there. That's really cool. Let me change directory. That's obscure. Oh boy. All right, folks. Where did it go? Take an idea. We had a directory. We created an empty directory and we put in a simple little file. Then what was the next step?
Oh,
We mounted, and what happened? It went over that file. You want to be sneaky? You can hide stuff like that. So you can hide stuff underneath the mount point and nobody will know it's there. Just something that's curious. Okay. So now let's mount the other ones. Let's mount data 2 LV, and then 3. Then we're getting to the point where we need to make this permanent. So when we reboot, these will not automatically mount. We need to make some magic happen by making it mount by using etc tab. And all this stuff that we're doing is in the Linux Plus somewhere. Okay. What did I type in wrong? Did I not create the data LV PG? There they are. Said wrong FS type, add super. Oh. Did I do the MKFS thing? I missed that. That's probably what happened. Always a reason. Yeah, see, I forgot to do that. There. I forgot to put ETX4 on data 3. Now it'll work. Most of the errors you encounter are the ones you induce. You get really good at troubleshooting your own. What the hell? You want to blame the computer? Well, it's probably not the computer. If you heard it called the ID10T code, how many have heard that? Oh, you're gonna love this. This is Geek Humor 101. ID10T. What word does that spell? Been around a long time. All right, now if I do a DF mounted, then I see all three, we're good. Now there's a few things we need to do to make this mount. So I want a cat Etsy FS tab. This is a file that I guarantee you will corrupt. And then your machine won't boot. And you'll have to remember what you did to undo your typo. So at a boot, because if this is wrong, it will actually go into single user mode and give you an opportunity to fix it. But you have to know what's wrong to fix it. This is the most common failure that I have had with Linux not booting, is because some ID10T code in the Etsy FS tab, and it's always pointed back to me for the most part. Okay. Now, if we look at this, you have one too. If you type in cat Etsy FS tab, you're going to see similar information, but those numbers under UUID are all different. Okay. And what we will be doing is adding our stuff to this. There is two ways to do this. All right. Now, I think what I want to do is, I think I'll show you the not right way first. I'm only going to mount one of them. Okay. The Etsy FS tab file is space delimited, even though they use tabs in there. So what we can do is we can actually type in, now I'm going to put in here mods, just so I know I've done. If your arrow keys don't work, I'll show you how to fix that next. Okay. So what we do is we say, what is the device that we want? When we typed in our mount command, we typed in /dev/data vg/data1 LV, couple of spaces, MNT data 1. Now we have a bunch of funny things to put in here. We follow this format kind of, sort of. Okay. So we say, all right, I want to put this volume group on that directory, and I want to use ETX4 so it knows which kernel module to use. And then I will say defaults. That's always safe. And then I will say 0, 2. Or you can say 0, 0. Let's use 0, 0. Okay, that's fine. All right. That's the format you need to make this work. Okay. Now let's see if I blew it up. Let's make sure I got the right thing. Errors, remount 0, 1. Okay. We ready for a test? Let's see if it goes into single user mode. Watch what happens. Can't open block div. I wonder what that means. Maybe that's why it's so slow. Okay. So I'm booting the VM and we'll see if it comes back up or goes into single user mode. Because Linux has a lot of control over the boot process. It is a lot faster as a VM than on hardware, that's for sure. All right, let me log in again. Do it. No errors, everything worked. Now, if I do DF, what do I see? Ta-da! MNT data 1. Now, that is a way to mount your mount points. The correct way is to do this. Block ID dev data VG data 1 LV. Why is that an honest? Oh, SUDO. This is where the Jeopardy song needs to go. There it is, my UUID. This is what we really need. Here. You know, that terminal emulator is not behaving the way it should. Copy. All right. Am I getting errors on the console? Doesn't look like it. Let's do this. I'll log in as root, but it didn't work. Now, the way this is supposed to behave is where you put data VG. I'll just do YYP, insert, Control Shift V, and make sure you remove the quotes. That will bite you. That is the correct way to put something in FS tab. Why do you want a gnarly number like that? How many have played with dual boot machines? Yeah, sometimes when you get a dual boot, you actually have to go in and change the BIOS to change it to boot because you've got to put it in a different order. Well, this bypasses that problem completely. So if you want your boot drive to be the 7th one in your BIOS controller, it's identified by UUID, and that becomes your boot drive. You don't have to make that part as, oh, that's my first drive. I've got to move that to the first controller so I can say 0 is my first drive. You're going to shuffle all the drives around on your server. You don't have to do that. This is the convention that is held to in production servers. You use the UUID. Okay. All right. So we actually don't use this second one. All right. You may occasionally see it, but this is the correct way. This is what I want you to do. So now that I'm in the VI session, you can do VI magic. You can say, read, bang, block ID, dev, data VG slash data to LV, and then delete all the extra garbage, including the quotes. Delete that line, delete that line, go here. And this is kind of a cool way to do things. You hit uppercase D, uppercase P, uppercase P. Whoops, I stole the E. Let's put the E back or it won't boot right. Change it to data 2. Now, what did I do? I ran a command at the command line and read the output into my VI session. And the syntax for that, VI, when you get your colon, also has, or should have, up and down arrows, so that's okay. I say read, bang, from the shell, run the following command, block ID. And then I say, give me data VG, data 3 LV, and I hit enter, and it puts it at the bottom of my file. And then if I use uppercase D, that deletes those. Now I'm going to use uppercase D and then lowercase p and lowercase p. Notice I didn't rip off the last character this time. There. I have unique UUIDs for each of my mount points. I save this file and reboot it. Go back to the VM. It's thinking. There it goes. Reboot. All right, now we have 25 minutes or so, or 30 minutes or so, where you get to do all this over again in your own one. And I'll bring up the history so you can kind of take notes, take pictures or whatever. Because this is what I want you to do, something very similar. So let me go back over here, log in from the client so you can see what I'm doing. Your history file, anybody remember where that is? Yeah, it's in the command history. Where's the text file stored? Great quiz. It's in cat in your home directory. Just do cd cat dot bash underscore history. And there's all your history without the line numbers. So I can basically take this history. This is really cool. This is what I do when I take notes on things. What I do is this. I cat the bash history into save stuff.txt. VI save stuff. And then what do I want? Yeah, I want that one. Because we talked about that one. What else did we say? We said CTOL. How do we go to the other one? It was what? Graphical target, right? I spell that right? I don't need a reboot. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need all that. I'll leave that one because it kind of helped us show stuff. And then this kind of helped us see stuff. And then we kept working our way down until we got to the correct way to do stuff. And then we did a snafu, another snafu, another snafu. Then we did it right. Now we echoed it. We got the name. All right. Host name. We did that. That kind of makes sense, right? I guess here is where I should put reboot after we did that. Update. All right, this is where we started doing our stuff. Okay. Did the PVs. Then we did I forgot SUDO a lot, didn't I? Then I showed you how it disappeared. I will leave that out. And then we mounted it with the right name all by itself to prove that it worked. Then I fixed my goof, which is here. And then we basically did this for all three. Oh, I need SUDO on all those. And we did it. Cool. Let's see here. Let's write this out and say cat save stuff. I don't, do I have a printer installed on this guy? I don't think I do. LPs. Oops. LP dest dash D for destination. I don't have cups installed. Nmap. Localhost. I need to install some apt install. Nmap cups dash PDF. That way I can print stuff. Because I'll print out this history and then you guys can work from there. I'll give you hard copy. Oh, you have to type it in. Well, you have to, that'll help you remember. Because if I just put it on the website, what do you do? Copy and paste, and you won't remember anything. All right, let's see here. Now run Nmap, there's 631. Now if I do my LP dest, admin. Darn, hold on a second. Let me find out. Oh, LP stat. Good. Here we go. LP stat minus P for printer and dest and the default. So I have one printer, it's PDF. So what I can do now is I could add a printer. Let's do this. Save stuff. Now I want to cat save stuff to LP. Change directory to uppercase PDF. And there it is. Now I have to get it from there to here. Let me do. Now, when you want to copy files from virtual machines, there's a couple different ways to do it. This is a way I have found that seems to work fairly simple. You know how you SSH to your VM? SSH is the same protocol as SCP and FTP. So I will say scopy from Tux at 192.168, 122, and I think it was 217. I think. Well, let's go over here. IPA. Nope, 167. Different machine. 167. Then the nomenclature you need here is a colon. You could put 22 after that, but you don't have to. It defaults to that. So if you're running your SSH server on port 2222, you would type in 2222. Slash, where did I put it? I put it under home, Tux, save stuff, right? No, it's in PDF. PDF, and it was called Standard in PDF Job 1. There we go. STDIN __ PDF job _1.pdf to my current working directory. Password. There it is. Now I can simply say LPR as in print to, oh, what did I call it on this machine? Darn it. That's what I get for changing the names of my printers. What did I call it? I think it's called text print here. Let's see if it works. Oh, no. Are in unsupported document format. Okay, plan B. Find a printer that has the right format. That one works. Wants a copy. One, two. I can do it this way, but there's also an LPR command that says number of copies. Because I know people next week are going to want it. Oh, yeah. Problems. Here we go. Truncated. Oh, no. You'll have to fix the truncation. That doesn't look right. There's a lot, it got truncated pretty bad. I better fix it. There's a couple different ways to do this. So let's do LPS and then LP stat, and then I can say delete. Whoops. Oh, LPS should take me in. Oh well, I'll let it do its thing and do it this way. I have a hate relationship with printers. They have given me more headaches in my career than just about anything else. Cancel. Where's cancel? There it is. Cancel. Yes. I'll have to cancel a few times. No jump. Oh, good. Resume. Hey, liar. See what I mean? Printers are out to get me. There is some fun stuff that I could show you about printers that gets into the dark art of printing. But knowing this stuff is never gonna help you in school, but it will help you in a job. I actually had a student from Candy Factory, the old Nestle's, what is it, Sconza? And he was in charge of doing trying to get these label printers to actually print the barcodes correctly. And I said, you have the drivers? No, we got to reverse engineer everything. I said, do you know anything about PCL and PCL5 and PostScript? He said, no. Let me teach you. So we went through the whole process of how the printer takes these commands, turns it into something, and then prints it on the printer. And we basically took his stuff and used Inkscape, turned it into a PostScript file, and then we could print it. And then he basically created that blob as a font that was downloaded, and then he could put the data on top of it. He solved the problem, made himself a lot of money by being the smart guy in the room. But it's not stuff that you typically do, because most printers, you plug them in and they kind of work, right? Mostly, generally speaking. I have a 24-pin dot matrix. It doesn't work. Anybody want it? Come on, finish, would you? All right, let's get this cleaned up. Now, where did I put that? I want to go here. Do I have an Apache web server on this machine? Here's another way to get files off your virtual machine. I'll show you this. This is kind of fun. You're gonna have to know how to do this too. This is one of the things I ask you to do, is install the web server and change the default web page. Okay. Well, all the way down here. Oh, it's already installed. Good. I don't think it started. Oh, it is. All right. So let's bring up a web browser and go to my IP address. Come on. Where'd you go? All right, we'll use this one. Missed. Brave. Open this and go to 192.168.122.167. There's the default web page. Ta-da, my web server is working. But I don't want that web page. This is what your homework is, part of your homework. We'll do this again. We do change directory, var, www, HTML, do a list, there's index, sudo, copy index, HTML index.org. And then I will copy save text stuff text to his directory. I don't know. Yeah, it should work. All right. There it is, save stuff. So I want to copy from my home directory, save stuff to the current directory called sudo. And voila, there's our file. Let's see what it looks like when I print it. It's a little smaller. Print one. Let's see if it actually works. So that's what we did tonight. That's a lot of learning smashed into one evening. Did it print better? It did. You can actually read this one. So that one, when we print it, I'll just say right click, use the print. Now, where is it? Where's this file? It's in the virtual machine in Tux's home directory. So on my virtual machine, my web server is running. I moved this to the document root in the web server so I can see it and therefore print it. It's another way to get to data. This little technique is also how you can make Pixie Boot off a web server. So you can use HTTPS, put your ISO files out there and tell Pixie Boot to go to it and pull the ISO and boot. So that's kind of cool. So I'll do 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay. We'll do so many. And then I'll print 2 more. For me. Yeah, that prints faster. Now, your VI session, well, there's a Vim history too. I just forget where they put it. It keeps changing. That's a good one. That's a good one. Not a good one. All right. So you will need this information in general, maybe not in specific, for the final, because we'll be doing all of this over again according to a cookbook. I say create a virtual machine with 2 hard drives and 1 volume group and make the mount points go here and use and put the UUID and FS tab and on and on and on. So everything we're doing, we're going to do again. And if you don't have Linux running at home, put it on a virtual machine on your Windows box. Use VMware Player, use VirtualBox, use something, get an old PC and put Linux on it. And then the command, let me put one command on the screen. And this one command, well, it's several commands, is how you take your home Linux box to run KVM just like in this room. It's an app install. So let me find that and show you what that command is. Okay. VI notes and. Okay, this is what I wanted to start with tonight. We got through most of it, not all of it. We didn't do that. This is what you need to install those commands right there. And this is a script that will run it for you. But basically you say apt install all those things. -Y just means it doesn't give you any questions. And then the QEMU, and then the GUI at the end, when you say apt install, yes, Vert Manager installs a ton of dependencies. Okay. So, and then the last thing you do is you set your primary user to these two groups. So Tux can run virtual machine. Otherwise, you won't be able to do that. Okay. So those are the commands. If you have a Linux box at home running Ubuntu or Debian, you run that. You can now do all the KVM stuff that we're doing here in class. So if you've got an extra PC, that's great. If you don't, use a virtual, some sort of hypervisor that works on your Windows box. VMware Player works. VirtualBox works mostly. I would use VMware Player. A little more elegant, but you can only run one virtual machine at a time. Just kind of a drag. Better yet, just get rid of Windows, get rid of Mac, and run Linux, and then you'll really learn this stuff. Not that I'm biased or anything. Okay. So there you go. So we did a lot tonight. A few things I didn't get to, but that's okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is stop the share and